Hey, what is going on, my friends, and welcome back to another video on the channel. On today's video, of course, as you can tell from the title, we are going over HITIF Inc., ticker symbol HITIF. Now, this company did just release their quarterly results from Q1 of 2021, and I must say they are absolutely fantastic. We have a lot of information to go over today. I'm going to go over their financial results. I'm going to go over what I'm expecting in the future. We'll take a look at some of their operational highlights. We will go over some technical analysis, and lastly, I will tell you all what I am doing with all of this information, whether I'm buying some more, whether I'm selling. As you all do know, I am an investor in HITIF. So that being said, since we do have all of this to go over, let's go ahead, let's jump straight into the video and let's get to it. Now, as you can see, this information was released to my Patreon members earlier today, a few hours ago actually. I also released a daily newsletter. I released a trade that I did make, and I will continue to release some of the trades that I do make as soon as I'm done recording here. So if you do want access to all of this information as soon as I do get it, if you want access to literally everything that I do as a trader or a YouTuber, definitely go down to the link in the description. It'll bring you over to my Patreon, and that is where I am 100% transparent with all of that information. Also, if you are looking to expand out into a new brokerage or start your own investment journey, I 100% recommend using the referral link down in the description below. Go ahead, use the referral link. It'll bring you over to Webull. Open an account and deposit $100. Whenever you do those two simple steps, you will get 2 free stocks valued all the way up to $1,850. So that being said, let's go ahead, let's jump into it, and let's see what all has been going on with HITIF Inc., ticker symbol HITIF. Now, if we do go back up here, we can see here that they have been going off the walls. HITIF reported its first quarter 2021 financial results, which featured a 179% increase in revenue and a record adjusted EBITDA or Ebitda for $4.6 million. So whenever it does come to this company, what all have we seen? Why in the world have they been able to manage a 179% increase in revenue? What are some of their gross profit margins? Let's get into all of that information. So of course, the 179% growth in revenue is going to be about $38.3 million in the first quarter compared to $13.7 million in the same quarter of last year. Now, since that same quarter of last year, we have to consider all of the changes in which this company have made because they are drastic. I mean, we have to consider the fact that they did acquire Meta Growth Corp, which is going to it brought them on another 30 retail stores and established themselves as the largest cannabis company in Canada. They've also established over 80 different retail locations in the course of the last few years. And so with all of this information, they have just been going absolutely off the charts. Now, not only did they see a growth of 179% in revenue, they also saw a 208% growth in gross profit. Now, this is very important because, of course, as your revenue does increase, that's pretty good. But at the end of the day, if you're increasing your revenue that much through the opening of many new locations, well, of course, your operating expenses are going to increase. Your overall expenses in general will increase. So if your overall expenses are increasing faster than your revenue is increasing, well, then that can be an issue, and you may see your gross profits actually decrease or not make many moves whatsoever if they're growing at the same rate. What this tells me is that since their gross profit is growing faster than their overall revenue is increasing, it means that these margins are increasing due to a decrease in expenses, or overall, their revenue could just be increasing so fast that there's no way that their expenses are keeping up, creating a bigger gap, which is, of course, a fantastic aspect about this company. It does show a lot of stability. It shows that there's a lot of future promise and potential whenever it comes to their financials, and it will allow them to continue to open these stores because it makes sense financially. So their gross profit margin, as we did just mention, did go from 35% last year to 39% this year, which again shows that they're decreasing their expenses and increasing their revenue, which is going to create a bigger gap there, which is absolutely phenomenal. It shows a lot of experience and a lot of veterans on their board who really do understand this overall industry. Now, whenever we did just mention their EBITDA, what that is basically going to do is it is their earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. It is basically just a very raw and clear way to be able to compare profitability and understand operational performance. So with that being said, their EBITDA for the first quarter of 2021 was $4.6 million in comparison to negative $0.8 million for the same quarter last year. So I don't even really have to talk about that one. As we can see, that is an absolutely phenomenal growth, and it does show that they are really starting to catch their stride. Now, whenever it comes to geographically, where is all this this overall revenue coming from, and in what segments of their company? Of course, the biggest pieces of their overall business model that is providing them with this much revenue is coming out of Canada from their retail locations. Now in Canada, we did see their overall revenue increase to about 34.2 million, with over about 4 million coming from the US and 0.2 internationally. So that is a bit of a landslide, but I do believe that that provides them with a lot of potential, because we have to consider the fact that some states just actually legalized the recreational use of cannabis, such as New York. And as this market is increasing in the US, I think their experience in Canada is going to allow them to have some leverage coming into the US. They'll have a lot of revenue and they will have the ability to really expand out. And I think that we may in the future start to see that gap between Canada and the US close, but it definitely will take some time. Now, it is no surprise to anyone that we did see their overall revenue coming from the majoritively from retail. Retail generated about $36.8 million, and only about $1.5 million is generated by wholesale and some of their immaterial amounts by corporate. So what that basically means, it is a very clear, path to success for this company. I would say that they need to continue to focus on their retail. Of course, they can continue to grow out their wholesale a bit, but realistically, if they lost all of their wholesale sales at the moment, it really wouldn't make that much of a difference. And so I think that as they do continue to grow, that they will probably continue to focus more on retail, especially as they do expand out past Ontario, grow some of those positions, and as in Ontario itself, the overall market's about to increase dramatically. And so as they do all of that, I wouldn't be surprised to see that large gap between retail and wholesale continue in the future. Now, last but not least, we do have their cash on hand increasing up to about $16.6 million in comparison to only being at $7.5 million only about 6 months ago. Now, the reason I do believe that this is going to happen is because we're starting to see them, of course, generate loads and loads of revenue from their stores. In the past, we saw them have to generate revenue or get cash on hand from capital raising, or they would have to figure out other ways in which they could get some cash. But now that they do have over 80 locations that are generating $40 million in revenue every quarter, I wouldn't be surprised to see that cash on hand continue to grow, or if it may stay somewhere the same, but they're increasing their stores dramatically. They've basically put themselves in a position to be able to reinvest their now earned revenue into themselves and grow out, internally. And I think that's going to be phenomenal. And I think that does provide them with loads of potential in the future. And again, I'm so excited about all of it. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a look at a quote from Raj Grover, who is, of course, the president and CEO of HITIF Inc. And then we will take a look again at the technicals, and I'll tell you all what I am doing with this stock. So from Raj Grover, it does say that I am extremely proud of our team for delivering the highest quarterly profit in HITIF's history. Now, despite facing some of the same challenges that all retailers have confronted during this pandemic, we recently crossed the 80 store milestone across Canada. Between the commencement of our application to list on the NASDAQ and the subsequent filing of the 40F form with the SEC, this all combined with the fact that they secured the acquisition of Smoke Cartel, the first quarter of 2021 has seen our team deliver on significant milestones that will drive future growth. I think going forward, all of these things that he mentioned here are going to provide them with even more growth, especially if we do see some type of uplisting to the NASDAQ. That will provide them a lot more exposure to many investors. And I think, of course, that is only going to be very, very positive for the company. And I expect that that will be very, very soon. Now, with that being said, what is going on with their stock? What am I expecting from their stock charts? And where am I going with this? Well, whenever I did make my last video on HITIF Inc., we were right around this area here, and I said that I did not believe that it was going to pass that level just yet. I was like, there's going to need to be a little bit more news. We were actually expecting that their earnings were going to be a little bit later, and we all knew they were going to be good earnings. And so I was saying that I think we're going to have one more little fall here. That's whenever it's going to be about time for me to load up, and then we are going to see it retest some of these levels. It's been trading in this channel for quite some time now. It's been trading in this channel for about the same month, and I would say that it is a good sign to see it finally breaking that trend that we did see here. Now, it is starting to retest some of these levels at this resistance right around here, and I think this is very, very important that as we do approach this, that we break that resistance point. Now, the reason I say that it is about to get interesting is because at this level is going to be some very strong resistance, as we did see earlier in last month. Now, we saw it earlier last month, and we also saw it around that same exact level just last week. Now, it is going to be interesting to see as they do bounce off of this resistance of the bottom of the channel, if they are going to be able to continue this pattern. As we see, it's very repetitive, right? Boom, 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 boom. Now, whenever we bounce off the bottom of this resistance, what is going to happen? Because we're going to approach something right around here that's going to be very implicative of whether or not this thing is going to be able to continue to grow, or we may start to see it turn around here. I personally have no idea what's going to happen. I'll be keeping a very close eye to see where exactly this thing moves, but my guess is that if we break this resistance right here, and I think it's very possible that this thing could be set to really start seeing some major growth, especially in the long term. So that being said, I'm very excited to see what happens with these technicals. I'll be keeping a close eye, and as soon as we get some information whether or not it's going to meet this resistance and stop, maybe it'll consolidate for a little while and then break resistance, or it may bounce and we may start to see it start to trade within here. And then who knows, maybe that could be the start of a downtrend. I don't believe that's the I think it's more likely that we'll break this resistance, but of course you never really know with the stock market. So with all of this information, what all have I been doing and why have I been really growing this position very large? So whenever it does come to my overall portfolio, as you guys do know, I don't put a lot of money into any single stocks. Especially if it's a penny stock, I won't really put in more than like maybe $200 or $300 at a time, simply because I don't really, that's not a part of my trading strategy. I actually do have a video coming out later that breaks down how I divide up my portfolio and the reason as to why penny stocks realistically only take up less than 10%. Well, this is a company that I really have a lot of faith in. I think that they are absolutely phenomenal, and for that reason I have been really picking up this position. As you guys can see, that over the last few trades I have gotten a lot more shares in comparison to where I was. For the first basically 2 or 3 weeks that I owned a position in this company, I only had somewhere around 100 and maybe about 90 to about 200 shares. Well, as you can see here, starting last week and coming into this week as well, I picked up another 550 shares, which puts me right around 800 shares. Now, this may not be crazy numbers, it might not be thousands of dollars, but in comparison to other stocks that I do own, maybe some of the other ones that may only be like $100 or $200, me having somewhere around, maybe about 800 or 900 shares of this one definitely is showing that I am honestly very invested in this company. I really do like them. I think that they have loads of potential, and for that reason I do want to capitalize on it because I can't imagine anything else but success for them. They've established themselves as a leading player. They've established themselves in an industry in which is only going to grow from this point forward, and I'm very excited about what their future holds. So with that being said, that is all I have for you today whenever it comes to High Tide Inc., ticker symbol HITIF. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, you can let me know by smashing that like button and subscribing to the channel if you are new. With that being said, I do post on this channel 2 to 3 times every single day, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video. Peace.